Let's have a look at multiplication next. Again, the very basics. Let's say b is 2. I can print out a, and I also have this short syntax for multiplying a with b. Therefore, if I print this, I of course get 24. Do I also have this syntax here? Let's see, what do you think happens? We get an error, so that's not possible here. What do you think happens if I get rid of this and I again add my multiplication here where I print out the result, and I change a to be let's say 1.3. What do you think is printed out if I hit run? Well, 2.6 of course. Now what do you think happens if I change 2 to 2.2? Let's see what happens if I hit run. That is very strange. That clearly is not the correct answer. The answer should be 2.86 and all of that stuff shouldn't be there. And that's a bug in JavaScript. It has its issues with floating point numbers, and it has the bug of, well, adding this strange part here, so making a more complex number out of this than it actually is, which of course is a big problem if you were doing the following, for example. Let's say you have a if statement and you were checking if a times b equals 2.86, which of course you would expect to be true. So like this. And you certainly would not expect to get false. However, if you run this code, you would get false, because it's not equal in JavaScript's world, even though you know in the real world it's very equal. So this is a common bug with JavaScript. Now a good fix for this problem is to put this calculation into parentheses here and use the toFixed method on it. Now this method here takes an argument where you define to how many numbers you want to, or decimal places you want to basically round or fix it. Therefore now if I run this, we get true, because we're not getting this number anymore when comparing it here, but instead we're fixing it and we're cutting off all the part we don't want. This is a fix you should use when doing calculations with floating point numbers, since it might be a source of very annoying and hard to trace down bugs, because who would expect for JavaScript to behave this way, right? So with this very important bug out of the way, let's have a look at some other calculations. Imagine you have a number and a number as a string. What do you think will happen? Well, we get 4.4. As before, JavaScript is not able to build strings out of multiplication operations, so it tries to cast a string into a number instead. Therefore, if I change this to something which can't be cast to a number, I'll get not a number, because it's not able to finish this calculation. And as well, I also can't multiply two strings. This will also result in not a number. Now, what do you think happens if I have a number and then here I have null? Well, let's see it. Well, we get 0 because null gets interpreted as 0 as before. So basically, these types of casting or interpreting of values haven't changed. The most important part to take away here is the issue about floating point numbers, and be aware that this is also the case when dividing floating point numbers. Now there's one value I haven't shown you yet, and this is infinity. Sounds strange, but what do you think will print if I hit run? We get infinity, so that's basically a representation of an infinite value, and if we multiply something with infinity, we of course get infinity.